Okay.
Hi, everybody. It's Martha Creek. You can contact me at marthacreek.com. This is a mentoring moment. Um, Actually, I think just because it started with an M, that's why I call it Mentoring Moments with Martha. I can assure you, though, I'm learning and I'm unlearning, and the folks that I get the privilege to serve with and to be interviewed by and with here, in this case, my sister soul, the Reverend Denise Yeargin, is here with us. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. That whatever is brought forth here in this podcast or in this video, if you're watching it, it's done to inspire you to be about whatever you're about. So in no way are we trying to encourage you to be about what we're about, unless you're about that. So we then offer that up, that you'll get some nugget here, an idea, an inspiration, a breath, a wind beneath your wings, or something that'll continue to propel you in the direction of your own life's goals and dreams, your ministry, and how you're here to serve. So thank you, Denise, for being here.
Oh, I am so honored to be here. Thank you for asking me, Martha.
I'm thinking about that beautiful view. Reverend Denise calls what she did this year retirement. I call it entirement, that you actually move out of a more of a limited space or a limited construct of what we're doing and back into entirement that says, what am I going to do? So let's open the call today with, what is retirement to you? What does it actually mean to you? And particularly in the profession of ministry, as a minister, that it's not likely that there's ever going to be any retirement. So speak about it, honey. Just open it up with, what's the reality of that for you? What's it meant to you?
It's very interesting because when I said to my congregation, I'm going to retire, I had people say, oh, you can't do that. Ministers don't retire. And I was like, oh, well, we can. And then it's been probably the most interesting thing that's happened for me, Martha, has been that I have been living here at the river for 9 months. 9 months is how long it takes to get a baby ready to be birthed. And what I have begun to realize is that what I used to call ministry in a building with a group of people has now expanded to many different kinds of people and people that I never, ever realized I would be ministering to. Some of my own family, some of my partner Judy's family, some of the people down here in Savannah are looking at my Facebook posts and asking me questions about unity. And I'm being very aware of how to bridge the gap between fundamental religion and unity principles. And actually, it's a very exciting time for me. And I love what you called it. Say that word again, because I'm going to have to write it down. Entirement, because that's what it feels like. It feels like every day there's some new connection, some new person, some new something. I have people, that will reach out to me and say, this is what's going on in nonprofits in Savannah, Tennessee. Would you be interested? Here's a program that's trying to mentor teenagers that are struggling with school. Would you be interested? I mean, it's just, there's something constantly coming across my radar screen. And so, yeah, it's exciting, very exciting. And I would have never assumed that it would have been just like this. I didn't know what it was going to be like.
Well, that speaks, I think, Denise, to your minister's heart, the heart of a minister, the heart of a pastor that understands that whether we're meeting in brick and mortar or not, that there's no shortage of humans. There's no sort of human suffering. There's no shortage of human sorrow and human dreams and human goals and human desire that's looking for someone to fan the flames of that or to be a blanket of comfort in some way. So I spent my early years in ministry saying and declaring, one of my missions was to ensure that no sane unity minister retired. And that
Yeah.
I was intent on that. And people would laugh about it. And I'm like, I'm not joking, because it's like I believe that there's a real potential in ministry, and other teachers, I've gotten this, I believe this most of my life, that there's a possibility that exists in clergy, not just unity or Christianity or anything, but in clergy holds a certain potential and power to be a catalyst for people's breakthroughs and to be there for them in times when in doubt, confusion, bewilderment, pain, losses, grief, sorrow, change, whatever it is. So now I'm rooting people on. So this is a part of my conversion, that I'm rooting people on to retire, believing that you're not leaving ministry, though, that you're expanding ministry, that you understand now, and whoever doesn't is not tuned in at all, that the church as we knew it through brick and mortar or a talking head gathering at 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning is one speck of ministry and extremely limited at best in that. So now it's like, yes, go back into retirement. Yes, go into retirement. Yes, look to see how limited this continuing to do it this old way is. So speak about some of the ways. So you spoke about the opportunities coming across. I know that you wrote. I know that you're devoted to writing. I know your spiritual practices are intact as ever, as far as how you think and contemplate and meditate and get up early and take walks and serve and give and other things. So speak to the potential that you are living in, not that's out there for you, not that that's out there as possibilities for you, Denise, but that you're living in, walking through and serving yourself while you're serving others that you're currently in right now.
Well, the first thing I would like to say is if anyone had ever told me 5 years ago, you will be living in Savannah, Tennessee, I would have said, no, because I've always been somebody who enjoyed the big city and all of that. But what I have found here is a chance to ground myself back to practices that were important to me as a child, finding really who Denise is without all of the what I consider the trappings of being a minister in a church setting, and just being able to open wide the door and go, what is there for me to do and who is there for me to minister to today? Even to the point to where some days, Martha, it might just be feeding the birds and the squirrels and watching the deer and seeing if I have anything that they might eat. And then on a different day, it might be someone who I've met here on the road where I live who asks me a question about something that I have posted, because I have been very in tuned to getting up every morning and putting something out there for people, because I feel like this year has been so stressful for a lot of people. And I've had people say, I've never known much about New Thought. I've never understood the unity perspective. Can you give me more? And to me, that is so exciting that the universe has opened that up for me in a way that I never dreamed would be possible.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and your open mind speaks to it, honey, that you're not lacking awareness that says there's no shortage of ways to serve and there's no shortage of ways to minister, be it to me, be it to you, be it to self, be it to emotional base, be it to a spiritual psychic base, be it to an animal base, a natural base, to a partner, to a family, to children, grandchildren, and even still serving the congregation that you left.
Right,
Like even when you leave those congregations, it's delusional to think that you stop being a minister to those people.
right,
And I take some heat for this because there's such strict boundaries around that. And I understand the boundaries, and I've seen the consequences of people eroding those boundaries and not holding them. I've also seen the potential that comes from understanding that just because person A moved out and person B moved in doesn't mean that person B is the minister yet. That
Right.
person B will become the minister over time,
Right.
over relationships and over connecting and over engagement and things like that. And just because you're out doesn't mean that you're not their minister anymore either, just because you're not employed there or speaking over there on Sunday. So it could be even valuable to speak about that today, how you've navigated those lines and how the intention you hold for it, or what is your understanding or perspective on that?
Well, I think because of the way I entered ministry, um, I realized that there was going to be a transitional period because I entered a ministry that a minister that had been loved and was very charismatic had left. And I had stepped in, and it was difficult at best, I would say, for my first year to year and a half to get my footing as to how I was going to show up, who I was going to be. And if I could give anyone any suggestions for something like that, you have to be you. You cannot be that other person. There was no way that I could be the minister who left, even though I would hear, well, you're not like her. Well, no, I'm not. I am me. And here is the way that I minister. And so during this time, I have attempted you and I have had conversations. I have attempted to create what I considered to be healthy boundaries with the congregation that I had served, but I have always been open for a conversation. I just said, I don't have all the answers for you because I'm not there in the situation and I don't know what the situation really needs at this point in time. That's when I refer them to you, Martha.
Yeah. Well, pray for them if you refer them this way, honey, as you know. Because part of that is looking, depending on circumstances, is looking for someone to take responsibility that's not ours.
Right,
Wanting then to go back to the head, back to the mama, back to the matriarch, back to the somebody that's taken a lot of the responsibility over the years, or in some cases a scapegoat to say, I'm going to say Martha said it, or Martha advised, or Martha did, or Martha did, instead of looking at self and saying, it's no longer Martha's responsibility. It's no longer Denise's responsibility. This is the responsibility of the system, of the
right.
family, of the emotional unit, of the organizational unit, of the congregational unit. This responsibility belongs there. And there's not a lot of people in line saying, oh yeah, heap all the responsibility over me. Like, I can't wait to be the one to be the responsible one here, particularly when it starts to get dicey or
Right,
starts to get to dissolve, which is what we've seen
right.
some of. And then not knowing and wanting to do a good job and wanting to succeed and all the things that drive us, and then feeling like the ground is, it's built on sand, that is shifting under us too. So
I really have a gut level feeling that ministry, pastoring is shifting right underneath our feet in the way that we do it. And I don't know how many years that will take, but I think going through all that we've gone through with the pandemic and virtual church and all of that, I know even here in Savannah, it being such a small town, they have done church in cars that drive into parking lots and a minister stands up on a porch and, projects that way. But it's like, you know, it's just different. It's different. I know one of the people that I've talked with probably the most from the congregation that I left is the person that's running the chaplain program. And she said, there are certain people that I don't know how to support because they're in the hospital and I can't go see them and I can't and I can't and I can't. And the only thing I say to her is, what can you do?
yeah.
You can phone them, you can use the phone, you can call, you can send them an email with a prayer, but yes, everything has changed.
Well, I'm very inspired by that, Denise, and the way that I've seen people innovate, which is driven by the question of what can you do? And the teams that I used to build and the corporations that I served had a motto for me, and it's like, her middle name is find a way. And it's really true. I mean, I mean, when on days they liked it, they were inspired by it. On days they didn't like it, she was a dictator about this.
Right.
Like, get out of my office and go find a way to do this. Like, good Lord, like, Go find a way, find a way, find a way. And it's like, I can see some ways, like I can find a way, and it may or may not work for you. But that's been very inspiring to me to see innovative ways that people have done this, how to chaplain, and certainly how frontline workers have stood up, and said that they were trained to be doctors. They weren't trained to be the ones saying goodbye to them and being the only one they could hug, and having to be the family, having to be a surrogate family member for somebody, and other things too. And I've watched people send cards, send email, get tech savvy, and tech savvy enough to function. I've also seen people said they wanted to hear their voice, so they learned how to record their voice and send it on little voice memos and through voice texting and other things like that. So we've gotten innovative in the ways we serve. That's very, very inspiring to me. I also know that there's consequences. So you may, shed your light on this, Denise, that there's certain people that could go to a hospital, certain ministers and chaplains that actually could get into a hospital, and they wouldn't go into a hospital because they don't want to take the risk of that. They felt like it was irresponsible to their own health, that they're compromised, and that they could contract something that's going to be brought back out into the world and things like that. So it was much more treacherous for some of them. It was treacherous that I can't get in there and go see them. It was also treacherous that I can get in there and I'm not going in there to see them. So
Right.
what would you say to that? What would you say to them?
I have had to look at my particular life and who relies on me. And I've told people to do the same. Um, we have a gathering next week of some of my partner Judy's family, and I've told them I really can't do that because, well, it's actually the end of this week, because on Monday I'm supposed to take my 89-year-old father to his doctor's appointment. And he's compromised as he is. And I've got to make sure I'm okay. And so, again, I've talked to the chaplain from the church that I used to attend, and I said, you have to make those decisions based on you and your life. I know right now in my personal family, I'm I'm the only person that can help take care of my parents, and they're in their upper 80s. I'm the only person sometimes that can babysit my grandchildren if their daycare is shut down, and that has happened. And so I have to make sure that I am good. So I eat well, I sleep well, I take all my supplements, I do all the right things, and I attempt to not put myself into a situation where I might contract something, if that makes sense at
Yeah, of
all.
course it makes perfect sense to me. And then there's others though that'll say, like I just got up just yesterday, got a post from somebody saying, and if you're listening to the podcast, it's you, that said how sick she is of hearing this. I won't. Like you're out of principle. You're not applying this. Like you
Mhm.
have an immunity that's beyond anything. You can transcend all physical. And haven't you ever heard this? You're a teacher of this.
Yes.
And I didn't even respond to it because I've already responded to her. You do you, and whatever's in your integrity, you do that. You don't know a thing about my integrity or what
Right.
I'm doing or what I'm thinking or what I'm believing. And I'm the one that lives with me. So
Right.
I don't think I can transcend the physical. So far, if I drop a bowling ball on my toe, it hurts.
Yes.
Touch a hot stove, it hurts. So I don't see it as one or the other. I see it that we're an incarnation of a divine expression, and the laws of the physical, there is laws in the physical that rule, that says if you touch a hot stove you'll burn. And I
Yeah.
don't deny that there's people that can touch a hot stove and it not burn them. Go, good Godspeed, go for it.
Right.
I'm not one of them.
Well, I had someone in my life question me with that. And I just said, all I can tell you is that we all have different core belief systems. And I have a core belief system that I need to take care of myself so that I am well and whole and I can minister to my family right now. That's the most important.
Well,
So
the
that's where it ends right there.
classic definition, honey, of self-differentiation, of
Right.
knowing what I will take responsibility for and won't, and not trying to get her to or him to lean into you or to your way or whatever, versus you get to, you're choosing and deciding based on your own thought patterns, core beliefs, and consciousness, and so am I.
Right, right.
The trouble is making one of them right and one of them wrong.
Well, yes.
Uh,
Especially because I'm a unity minister and people want to believe that I can rise above it all the time. And I say the same thing you just said. I am human and I chose to come into this human body and I get to experience all of it. And some of it is sometimes not really pleasant. So, yeah.
yeah, the full Monty,
Yes, most definitely.
the full spectrum. And let's, if we're going to pray, let's pray then that we get less and less addicted to it going our way, and
Right,
less and less affronted when it doesn't. So
right, right.
and some kind of empowerment here. How would you answer the question? I think before I started the recording, you said that like you ministers would not retire. You don't ever retire if you're a minister. And that's likely the case if you're a nurse or a teacher or whatever. I don't know, but we're in the profession of ministry. So speak to that, Denise, what you mean by that.
Well, I believe that being a minister or being a teacher, um, and being a lot of these things is about your beingness. I can't separate pieces and parts of me and go, okay, now I'm no longer this. I'm just this, whatever this is. I feel like that I have always been a minister and a teacher, even as a little girl. And so it's like you can't just turn that off, but you can expand it to the ways that I have chosen to expand mine here and the ways that I'm seeing a lot of people out there expand it, which is awesome. Look what you're doing here. This is wonderful. Giving people the opportunity to, listen to podcasts and go, okay, what is it that this person is doing? And I might get some ideas for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a desire in all people at some level to learn something. I mean, we're in a laboratory, so we're here as researchers really to see what can I know, what is true, what would work for me, what hasn't worked for me, to learn from that too and to apply it. So that's the nature of this offering, why it's out there in the first place. So
I truly believe, because I had people say, well, are you going to go down there and start a church? I think that would be the wrong thing to do for me, because I do think that this is a very fundamental area down here. And I think that if I jumped out there and said, I'm going to start this Unity Church, people would go, woo. But it's just little things that I've been able to stick out there, and people are like, I never thought about it that way. Mm-hmm. Talk to me more about that. And it's just a different way of ministry to me.
Well, which is what a church would accomplish eventually, honey. That right. Can do it though without the heat of that, or coming in as some rebel renegade without a cause that would threaten their very belief systems, versus coming in to integrate, in their system to say. Right. Yesterday, a man said in the interview that he gets called, he's done over 400 memorials, a minister that's done over 400 memorials, and how that's his calling. I mean, he still pastors and leads an organization and all that, but he's known in the area for the minister to call when there's a funeral, particularly with families that don't have a church or unchurched, or people that don't already have somebody lined up for it. And he asked these funeral directors finally, why is it you keep calling me? I mean, there's thousands of ministers around here. And their answer primarily was, you meet families where they are.
Yes.
You don't ask families to go where you are or to stand where you are. And he said that stemmed from one of his very first attending a funeral when he was a young person. That the person that was dead, they were there for the dead and the dead's family. And the minister came in, didn't even know the person that had passed, didn't know the dead person, and basically said, forget about him. He's a lost cause. Where are you? Where are you? You need to get saved today while you're here. And he said that was his education, that's all he needed to hear, to say that I'm here to represent the dead and the life of the dead and the family, the people that love them, which is, there's nobody, honey, that didn't have love. that didn't have love affairs and love energies and things like that.
Right,
So
right.
he was here really to speak to that. And
And
it
just
was
to
so,
celebrate their lives.
yes,
Yeah.
honey, and their sorrows and their losses and how they were, who they touched and how they were touched and other things. So that's what I hear when I think about you, honey, down there, that you're there in whatever place of the world you're in now. That's not the big city, and that you're there to be neighborly and
Yes.
build community and all that, and not to go in there and throw wrenches into their belief systems and all that, which
Well,
is
they're different here. I mean, they just kind of show up at your house. And I remember being a child, and back in those days, people did just show up at your house. Well, they just do that here. And I've had to get used to that. What does this mean? People just show up at my house. So it's about
well.
being a neighbor. Yes.
Yes, well, I got large doses of it when I was living there and caring for mama in her last 6 months, honey, and
Mhm.
how shocked I would be, even though I was raised in it. I'd been gone long enough that you call or send a text or check in
Right.
or do something.
Right. Or make an appointment to come by. No, we just show
Heard
up.
to think,
Okay.
what I would have called to tell you I'm coming? Mhm. And how much that also had to grow me up, because in most cases it was like, well, come on in most of the time, and then it got
Yes.
interesting enough there at the end to say,
Yes.
I'm not able to let you in today, that
Right.
you're not able to have a visit, or
Right.
we're
Right.
not in the space for it here, or
Mm,
whatever else. And then the
sure.
shock of that, the first, because it would be somebody's first experience of ever going to see somebody or going to care for somebody, and you actually couldn't get in to care for them.
Right. Right. Right.
So always learning, honey. And
Yes, we are.
Ram Dass used to say, or not used to say, still says, I guess, or did in his writings, just the second you think you're getting some enlightenment, go spend a few days with your family. So
Yes.
we can say, go spend a few days at the river,
Yes.
go spend a few days in Love Tussle, and see how the rest of how it really operates, honey. How
Right.
the rest of
Right.
the humans are functioning that think we're crazy for living in a big city. Um, and that's really
Right.
questioning our sanity about why we would want that, honey, or why we would
Right.
do that. So imagine that somebody's listening to this message, Denise, today, this little conversation, 2,000 years.
Mm.
What message would you want to convey to them if they took nothing away from this time that we've had, but one thing? That's the truth as you know it, the truth as you understand it. What would you want to convey to all souls?
Well, I believe that we're all here to love, and that we're all here to connect with other souls, whether it be the animal kingdom or human beings or plants and trees and grass, and that we each have to find that place that feels right for us, whether we call it ministry or we call it, teaching, or we call it just being a friend and a good neighbor, and making baking a pie and taking to somebody that has been sick. It's that is really the way. It's kind of, my grandmother used to say that, Denise, that's what makes the world go round, when she would always cook dinner for people that were sick, or go to people's houses that had had a new baby and clean the whole house and cook a dinner. And I'm like, do they care that you're here? And she said, honey, this is what makes the world go round. And what I'm feeling that has happened for me, and I've begun to see it with some other people, is that going through this 9 months plus of what we've been through as a world has made us all kind of pause and go, what is really important in life? And, to me, it's the human beings that I'm able to serve, touch, love, whatever it is that I'm able to do for them. So
Yeah. Thank you, honey.
you're
So do you
welcome.
want to put a website, honey, or any kind of information out here on the recording if people are interested in your work or working with you or following your teaching or anything? Do you want to put anything out about how they would contact you?
All I will say is that I am in the process of rebranding myself. I'm calling myself the Harmony Haven Mystic. And they can find that on Facebook. And they can also find Denise Yeargin on Facebook. And right now, that's the best way to get in touch with me.
Okay, there you go. Harmony Haven Mystic and
Yeah.
Denise Yeargin, Yeargin. And she posts daily, usually, and
Yes.
some very specific topics. And you're sure to learn something from it. So thank you
Thank
for
you,
what you're
Martha.
doing, honey. Yeah, you're very
Thank
welcome for my part, honey. Thank you for taking the time to do this. And
You are so welcome.
be blessed and uplifted. And all of you that are listening, may you be about more and more about your own luminosity dial getting turned up in whatever way that is, regardless
Yes.
of how you minister or who to or what for. And if you are looking to be ministered to, reach out to somebody that has a capacity to do that. So marthacreek.com to get in touch with me. There's all sorts of free videos, podcasts, everything's out there available to you to get empowered teachings to the whole of humanity. That's what they're offered for. So till next time. Thanks again, honey.
Bye.
marthacreek.com if I can support you. Blessings.